The air inside the library smelled of old paper and quiet. Dust motes danced in the light from the tall windows. Mr. Kenji Tanaka walked slowly to the counter. In his hands, he held a small stack of books. Their corners were a little soft from being held, from sitting on his table near his chair. He placed the books down. The sound was soft. 3 books today, all a few days past the due date. This was his habit. He did this every few weeks. Ms. Sato was behind the counter. She was young, with dark hair pulled back neatly. Her eyes were kind and quiet. She scanned the books, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. There was the small sound of the machine printing the slip. "Mr. Tanaka," she said softly. "These are a little late." He nodded. "Yes, I know." He reached into the small coin pocket of his wallet. He took out the exact amount for the fine. Small silver coins warmed from his hand. He pushed them across the counter. Miss Sato took the coins. Her touch was gentle. She gave him the receipt. The number on it was small. A small cost for a small delay. "Thank you, Mr. Tanaka," she said. He nodded again. He did not speak much here. He looked at the shelves, rows and rows of books. So many stories, so many worlds. He had borrowed many over the years, and he had returned almost every one of them late. He had not always been this way. Years ago, he returned books on time, sometimes even early. Life had a different rhythm then, a shared rhythm. His apartment was small but clean. Everything had its place. The chair by the window was his favorite spot. He would sit there in the afternoon light. Sometimes he read the books he borrowed. Sometimes he just held them. Or he looked out the window at the street below. People walked by. Cars drove past. Life outside moved at a steady speed. Inside his apartment, time felt different. It felt thicker, slower, especially in the quiet hours after the sun went down. He made himself a cup of tea. Green tea, the kind he liked. He sat in his chair. The space next to him felt large, empty. May liked to read in the evenings too. She would sit on the small sofa, a blanket over her legs, a book open in her hands. Sometimes she read aloud a sentence she liked. Her voice was soft, like rain on the window pane. They went to the library together sometimes. It was a quiet activity they shared. Choosing books from the shelves, the feeling of possibility in a new story. After May was gone, the quiet in the apartment grew very loud. It filled the rooms. It pressed in on him. Reading helped a little. The words on the page were not his own thoughts. They were another person's thoughts, another world, a place to go when his own world felt too heavy. He started borrowing books more often. He would bring them home. They sat on his table. Sometimes he opened them. Sometimes he did not. The due dates came and went. He noticed, but he did not rush. He let the date pass. Then, days later, he would gather the books and go back to the library. He never thought about the fine. It was just part of the return, a small fee for keeping the book a little longer. But it wasn't the book itself he was holding on to. Not really. One day, he borrowed a book about famous gardens. May loved gardens. They had planned to visit the famous garden in Kyoto one spring. They had a book about it. He remembered the pictures she liked. The stone paths, the moss, the carefully shaped trees. This new book from the library had pictures too. He looked at them slowly, page by page. The colors were bright. Green leaves, pink flowers. He felt a familiar ache in his chest, a quiet sadness. He kept the book on the table. Days passed. The due date came. He saw it on the slip. He did not move the book. He made tea. He sat in his chair. He looked at the cover of the garden book. Why did he do this? Why did he always wait? He thought about May. He thought about their life together. It felt like a story he had read a long time ago. Some parts were clear, like the bright pictures in the garden book. Other parts were fading, like old ink on paper. He realized the late returns started around the time the clear parts began to fade. As if holding on to the books a little longer could stop the fading, as if the small delay could somehow slow down time itself. Stop the moment he had to give something back, something that connected him to her. The books were not just paper and ink. They were small pieces of the world they had shared, or the world they had dreamed of sharing. By keeping them past the time, he was keeping a small part of that world alive, just for him, a little longer. It was a quiet protest against emptiness, against the fact that time kept moving forward, and she did not. This thought felt heavy, like a weight he hadn't known he was carrying until he finally saw it. He had another book out too, an old novel. He had picked it up because the cover looked familiar. Maybe May had read it. He hadn't opened it yet. It sat on the chair next to his. One rainy afternoon, the light in his apartment was soft and gray. He reached for the old novel. He opened it. The pages smelled older than the garden book. He turned the pages slowly. Near the middle of the book, something fell out. It was a small piece of paper, folded once. Not a bookmark from the library. This paper was thinner, maybe from a notebook. He unfolded it carefully. It was a small drawing. Simple lines. It was a cat. A little lopsided, with pointy ears and long whiskers. And next to the cat, written in small, neat letters, was a single word: sleepy. He knew the drawing. He knew the handwriting. It was May's. She had drawn this cat years ago. She liked to draw little things on scraps of paper, and she often wrote a word or two next to them. Just small observations. A sleepy cat, a sunny window, the taste of good tea. He remembered this drawing. She had left it on his pillow one morning. He had smiled. He had kept it for a while. But where had it gone? How did it get into this book? He realized this must have been a book she was reading. She had used the drawing as a bookmark. She had been reading this book, and when he borrowed it years later, the drawing was still there, waiting. He held the small paper cat in his hand. It was thin and fragile, but it felt more real, more her, than holding onto a stack of books for an extra week. He had been holding on to the lateness. He had been paying small fines as if paying for more time, for a return to a moment that was gone. But the true connection was not in the delay. It was in the simple drawing, in the memory it brought back, in the feeling of her hand drawing the lines, writing the word. The memory of her was not in the library books themselves. It was in him. It was in small things like this drawing. Things he carried inside, or things he found unexpectedly, like a gift from the past. Holding the drawing, he felt a shift, a quiet click inside. The weight he had felt earlier, the weight of holding on, began to lift a little. The library book with the drawing was due in 2 days. He looked at the drawing again. The sleepy cat. May. He knew, suddenly and clearly, that he did not need to keep this book late. He did not need the small fine to mark time. The time was marked by other things, by the drawing, by the memory, by the simple fact that he had loved her, and he still did. The next morning, the sun was bright. He made his tea. He did not look at the garden book or the novel with the drawing on the table. He ate his simple breakfast. Then he picked up the novel. He opened it and carefully placed the small drawing inside his wallet, in a part he did not use for money. A safe place. He picked up the other books too. The garden book, and one he hadn't even opened. He looked at the due dates. The novel and the garden book were due tomorrow. The third book was due in 3 days. He put the books in his bag. He put on his coat. He left his apartment. The air outside was cool and fresh. He walked towards the library. The streets were busy. People were going to work, going to shops. Life moving. He reached the library. He walked inside. The familiar smell of paper was there. The quiet was there. He walked to the counter. Miss Sato was there again. He placed the 3 books on the counter. She looked at them. She looked at the due dates. Her eyes met his for a moment. The novel, due tomorrow. The garden book, due tomorrow. The 3rd book, due in 3 days. He was not late. Not today. Miss Sato scanned the books. The machine printed the slip. There was no fine. The number on the slip was 0. Thank you, Mr. Tanaka, she said. Her voice was the same, soft and kind. But maybe there was a hint of something else in her eyes? Understanding? He couldn't be sure. He nodded. He didn't feel the need to explain. There was nothing to explain, not with words. He took his empty bag. He turned from the counter. He looked at the shelves one more time. So many stories. So many possibilities. He walked out of the library. The door closed quietly behind him. The street felt the same. The air felt the same. But something in him felt different. Lighter, perhaps. Or just present. He walked down the street. He did not rush. He did not feel the need to hold on to anything extra today. The world was simply the world, moving at its own pace. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was moving with it. He walked towards the park. Maybe he would sit on a bench. Maybe he would just watch the leaves in the trees. He reached into his wallet. He touched the place where May's drawing of the sleepy cat now rested. It was a small thing, a fragile piece of paper. But it was enough. More than enough. He had been trying to stop time, but time could not be stopped. It could only be lived. The books we gone, returned on time. The small fines were gone. The weight of lateness was gone. He had paid a different kind of fine, for years, without knowing it. The cost of holding on to a shadow instead of the light. Now there was just the quiet street, the gentle sound of his own footsteps, and the feeling of the small drawing safe in his pocket. He was not late for anything anymore. He was simply, finally here. And the world, for the first time in a long time, felt like a story waiting to be read, not held onto. The world kept turning, and for the first time in many years, so did he.